Hello and welcome to this video about GAGGIA Classic switch banks. I'm going to show you how do I normally take them apart and reassemble them. There are some good videos about it on YouTube available already, but I do things slightly differently, so I thought that it's probably worth to share my method. Before we go in any further, please make sure to read through the disclaimer in the description. Most importantly, make sure you unplug the machine from mains anytime you are working on it. Never leave out any fuses and or earth ground wires. During the installation, never leave the kit in the presence of unattended children. Disassembly. Obviously we need to get access to the internals of the machine. In order, we need to open it up, remove the water funnel lid and everything from the top plate if you have any cups or any other stuff here. I found the lid as a good container for all the small parts what we are removing from the coffee machine. Then just grab your Phillips head screwdriver and you find the two screws at the back of the funnel. Should come out fairly easy. So we just lift it off by 2-3 centimeters and then pull it backwards to remove the top plate from the flanges at the front. Then flip it and you have the earth wire connected to a tab there. Switch bank removal. The switch bank is secured by two tiny metal spring clips, one at each side. What we need to do is to press that spring clip in while pushing the switch bank towards the front. Make sure never pry underneath the front like so, because that will break the rim straight away. You will need to buy a new switch. And then it is important to keep the switch somewhat parallel to the front face. So once you had a couple of mil on that end, then you will need to disengage the other spring as well on the other side and get a couple of mil out on that end, and then just wiggle it out side by side. If you give it too much of an angle compared to the front face, it will stuck there. Once it is out, carefully remove the metal part. I think I can't stress it enough. I've seen no end of damaged wiring due to the sharp cutout hole and also the sharp plate. What I do is to leave the switch, slightly pull the cloth into the machine and kind of wrap the wiring. So that's your power switch. And if you once you get it out, those are the cutouts. I'm not sure if I could capture it, but once you turn the power switch on, you see that tiny brass or copper plate touching the connector. Sometimes that's just bent, and that's the reason for the indicator light not to coming on. So that's an easy one. If that's the issue, you don't need a bulb to there. Both sides you have a spring, and it is going to be quite challenging to... Oh yes, you could see it from there. There is a tiny flap which I'm going to undo, pry out with a pointy knife, probably a bit more because it's still holding, a bit from the other side as well. There we are. And then I'm going to remove just pull it off. If it is really stuck, oh it is. One thing what you should avoid, prying it while resting against that edge, because that will break instantly and your switch gonna end up in the bin. So now I can push down the whole switch and lift up the spindle that goes through all the way. So I'm going to do just show you the other end. So I'm pushing it down. I wish I could see what's there. Once it's slightly out, you could just pull the whole thing out. So, leave them there for now. That's your main power switch. That is your main live in for your indicator light. That's your brew function switch that closes the solenoid valve circuit. That's your steam circuit switch that bypasses the brew thermostat. And this is the pump switch or brew switch. This will activate the pump and also engage in the solenoid valve. And at the bottom here, that's your brew ready or temperature ready light, indicator light, live. We're gonna have a better look at that. Carefully release that bit. And you can see actually there is exactly the same contactor than what you have on the mains live. Oh yeah, it's here, look. So this is a resistor. It is a special one. It's not a through-hole resistor, not even an SMD. It has a cylindrical shape. I don't know what the actual name is, but this is how it looks like from close. It is 150k ohms, and it also has a tiny little spring. So you could have several issues with your switch. Any of the switches doesn't work. It is a really unlikely event, but what I normally do is just clean up these contactors and also these small hammer like things. So if you see that round thing at the end, I just use really fine 600 grit sandpaper. And just normally I use a bigger one and just polish the end of that contactor. And why I do have this tiny sandpaper here is to show you how I normally clean the internal of the switch, the internal contactors. Normally it is the main switch, the steam function and the pump which gets a bit burnt. These are quite good. So you could clean all four contactors there, and also all four small hammers. And then just put these back to where they belong to. Oh, not yet. Leave that for now. Sometimes if you had water leak in the switch and your indicator light is gone, it is only done through corrosion of that breastplate. So once you remove this plastic housing of the resistor, then you have access, and you could also vibe clean it with a fine grit sandpaper to get rid of oxide layer there from there or any corrosion. And pretty much that's it what is repairable. Sometimes if you have shorts, that's quite a tricky one, because if it shorts somewhere due to water in it, the high temperature what occurs due to the electrical arc between terminals changes the actual properties of the plastic. It is a heat resistant plastic, obviously. It's really close to the boiler. What's gonna happen, it's gonna turn into a foamy or spongy structure, and at the same time it became electrically conductive. So whenever you, let's say you have a short there, so that's a live and that's a neutral. You have a short there, and I would rather show it here. So these two shorted, you would definitely spot it from the back, because it's gonna discolor the plastic, and normally the short occurs at the inside. And what you should be able to do to scrape off the burnt material, it is really going to be spongy, and it will come off easily. And if you could remove all the burnt material, that means you also removed all the electrical conductive material. So all the rest is the original state of the plastic, and it's non-conductive. So you should be fine. On the other hand, sometimes you just have to remove too much material, and it won't hold the terminals in place structurally well. So it's or sometimes you just simply have not enough access to scrape off all the burnt material, and even you think you cleaned it up properly, you try it, you test it, and it's still shorting. Clicked in. Yes, confirmed. Sometimes you will have a ready indicator light failure because the end of the cylindrical resistor is corroded. You might get lucky with sanding the caps, the end caps clean, so removing the corroded surface layer, but you might not. How to remove the bulbs? The cover has two flaps on the sides. You can get in quite easily. It just pops out. There you are. Normally it pops out quite quick. If you ever wonder, because it's not symmetric, it has a kind of flap on one end of the shorter ends, because these are the ones securing it in place on the sides. If you ever wonder, that is always on the top. So, and then we just remove one of the feet from here and the other one from there. So this is it. It's a glim light or neon light, or I think it has quite a few names. If I remember well, it's 0.25 watts in 240 volt machines, so European or not United States, so everything else. So it's 0.25 watts, and it is somewhere around 5 or 6 millimeter diameter. However, it works well with the smaller one. The smaller standard is 3.7 or 3.8 millimeter, and this is originally red. So let's put the old one back. And just bend it down again. You can probably see there is a small amount of electrical conductive grease. Normally you can find it on the springs as well. This is to encourage or improve the contact between the feet and the spring, I believe. But it also comes handy because it keeps it in place. So when you fit your switch together, and then just pop that one back in. Nothing about the function switch, nothing there. The main switch is slightly different. This one has the resistor crimped on the one of the legs, so it looks similar to this. But the main difference, this is soldered, so in order to replace it you will need to desolder that pin, that leg, from this contactor. What it does, this end, I wish you could see that. Anyway, I'm sure you can imagine that. So that flap gonna get the light from there as soon as you turn the switch on. While on the other side we do have the spring in place to ensure there is a good connection even when the pump isn't on, because that indicator light works regardless of the pump being turned on or off. So there's just a flexible conduction between the terminal and the switch itself. So you will need to desolder to remove that, and then it is exactly the same. So just unfold both legs, just pull it out, and with this one you will also need to prepare your bulb like this. You don't necessarily have to, you don't have to use that heat shrink insulation, but you will need to be really careful not to bypass, not to contact that leg with the other one, because that will bypass the resistor and your light won't work. Yeah, this is it really. Now the most tricky part is reassembly. Especially if you have a tripod in front of you. So again, these are these small hammers. I will actually show you how the rocker switch works. If you have a bent spring, this one or even the tiny one, I would not recommend to use it. If you give a shout on coffee forums or Facebook groups, I'm sure you will find someone who has some spare parts, but bent springs not likely to work well. So this is how I normally fit it together, and just pull the spring over the... Ah, yes, it is beginning. It is quite a fiddly task. So if you only have to do one end, let's say replace the brew indicator light, I definitely recommend to use Damien's method. I'm gonna link his video anyway in the description, where you taping up your actual switch and you're not removing, not opening it completely. As simple as it is. When you reassemble a complete one, I like to put all these back where they belong to. You can fit your springs on the contactors. I think it's only my personal preference, as I prefer them in the switches and kind of poke them onto place. And that looks like a... Keep it in place. Thread it up. And that's where it starts to be more and more interesting. Yeah. Always check the position of the steam switch, because it could either go upside down. It would probably look funny. I just put it down to the desk. It is probably a good idea. I never do it this way. I think now it's only handy because of the actual tripod in front of me. And you need to apply quite a good fair bit of pressure there to keep the spring in the switch in place. And it clicked in. So if you see, there is a little pocket for the spindle to sit in. So when you pushing it in to position, it kind of pops in on both ends. Yeah, and that's it really. Remember, we just pried these open. What I'm going to do is to bend them back so it will engage again and lock the switch, lock the spindle into position, and also the switch. I definitely recommend to test it before applying the springs. Also, in my experience, if it's not right, it's not functioning as a proper rocker switch, so it's not bistable, but it jumps somewhere in between, or it's you're struggling to push it into one of the states. So once you tested it, this will go into that groove on both sides. And it does two things really, because once in place, you remember the pockets where the spindle sits in. It won't let the spindle to get pushed up, so you won't be able to remove the spindle. And it also secures the position of the switch bank in the chassis. And there we are. Yeah, that's all, folks. I hope I could help you to fix your switch, or at least to service, clean it up, take it apart, or reassemble.